Adolescence is a crazy time. Bits growing here and there, stretch marks, voices changing, hair growing in weird places. I was a swimmer, and when I started to develop an armpit hair, I was so embarrassed, I would shave it off. Painful, confidence-reducing acne breakouts, and the greasy skin that goes with it. Body odor. Luckily, I had a mother who would quite happily tell me when I was stinking and introduced me to deodorant early. Crazy emotions, mood swings, an overwhelming desire to fit in and be cool. I would pretend I was listening to whatever was popular at the time, Linkin Park, Eminem, but actually I'd be listening to Madonna, which if it ever got out at that time would have been social suicide at my school. The challenge of accepting our ever-changing bodies and learning to deal with our perceived imperfections. The fact that we didn't look like the supermodel or actor that we saw plastered on magazines, on movies, or in today's world, Instagram. We'd compare ourselves to our friends or the popular kids in school and wish we could be like them. We were just trying to understand who we were. To parents and teachers, we became rude, lazy, difficult, moody. I think my neighbour has hit puberty, because all I can hear is her fighting with her mother and having almighty screaming matches. Oh, the memories. Some of us became bullies, or became the bullied, as we found our position in the social hierarchies. Research has shown that some teens actually almost become little sociopaths, as their ability to feel and understand empathy towards others decreases. Some people don't really leave that phase. We also become night owls. Our biological body clocks move forward so that we go to bed later and wake up later. Then, of course, there's the constant fridge raiding, the never-ending hunger. Teenagers are biologically programmed to desire high-energy, energy-dense foods for their rapidly developing brains and bodies. The brain is undergoing a significant amount of synaptic pruning. This is where the neuronal connections are either being trimmed or strengthened, which actually continues until around the age of 25. Many people don't realize that technically we are still adolescents until then. Some researchers think that if this process of synaptic pruning gets disrupted in some way, it predisposes us to a whole range of mental health disorders, for example, schizophrenia, or even dementia later in life. So yeah, crazy time indeed. Now, while all this is going on, the adults try to make life as difficult as possible. Teenagers are expected to rise early, sometimes to start school as early as 7 a.m. to fit the adult schedule, very much against their teenage body clocks. They're expected to follow strict school schedules, behave perfectly, eat healthily despite those constant cravings for chocolate and soda. They're expected to study hard, get excellent exam results, and plan for their future. Pretty difficult to decide what you want to do career-wise for the next several decades when you don't even know who you are from one day to the next. As a teacher, I find the way we act towards teenagers strange. Often I find myself complaining about my students' lack of motivation or how difficult it is to get them to be interested. But actually, this is just the same as it is with adults to be motivated all the time at work or in their personal lives. Quite often, as adults, we have days where we just cannot be bothered, or where our minds are preoccupied with something else, our kids, our health, relationships, or that fight we had with our boss that we just can't get over. We are told to be enthusiastic about an upcoming work event when actually we really couldn't care less. As adults, we often put things off to the last minute. We procrastinate. We bury our heads in the sand to avoid something stressful, much like I did with this TED Talk. We overreact and we make excuses. Teenagers are just the same. Yet often we hold them to a higher standard than we hold ourselves. I often hear colleagues, and I do this again myself, complain about students spending too much time on their mobile phones, as we ourselves are sitting glued to our screens. Or gaming instead of studying. or being late with homework, or leaving exam preparation to the last minute. Yet what strikes me about all this complaining is the complete lack of self-awareness and the hypocrisy. A lot of the stuff that we moan about when it comes to teenagers, we went through ourselves, and we continue to do ourselves. I had a colleague who was saying we needed to crack down on the students as they're a bit meh, whatever that means. I asked what they wanted the perfect 17, 18-year-old to be like, and if they thought that was achievable. They couldn't answer. A lot of parents and teachers have forgotten what it's like to be a teenager, and also have a complete lack of understanding of what it's like to be a teenager in today's world, with all the extra distractions, pressures that we pre-smartphone teenagers did not have. The world is becoming much more competitive, the pressures are increasing, and society is changing rapidly with the speed at which technology is developing. But, and it's a big but, our biological development during adolescence is still the same. Biological development hasn't sped up or evolved to cope with the world that teenagers find themselves in today. They're still going through the same processes and at the same pace as we did. It's just the context they find themselves in is different. So how can we help them? How can we turn them into that motivated, hard-working ideal that knows what they want and strives towards it? Well, there is no one answer. For some teams, it's a complete mystery. No matter what we do, nothing seems to work. They're as stubborn as can be. And what works for one teenager will not work for another, because they're all different. Much like what motivates us as adults is different. Some are driven by external factors, like the terrifying tiger mum. Others by dreams of money, or as I frequently hear, being a boss. Some, like me, can be bribed. My mum would offer me cash rewards for every A grade that I got. Some are super lucky, and they find passion in learning. Those students tend to be the best ones. I once had a student who used to sit at the back of the class, half asleep, sometimes fully asleep. You know, the classic, the nodding dog. His test scores consistently at the bottom of the class. He was the very definition of unmotivated, moody teenager. Usually his responses were a shrug of the shoulders or a Then we got to the human reproduction unit. I'm a biology teacher. And human reproduction tends to be most students' favorite topic. Anyway, something happened with this kid. It was like a switch flipped. Suddenly, he was awake. He was engaged. He was asking and answering questions. He started studying. Shock horror. His results shot from the bottom of the class to the very top. And not only that, they stayed there. Why? He'd found his spark. That topic, for whatever reason, lit a fire in him. And from that point on, he decided he wanted to either study biology or become a doctor. He had found a goal, and he was working relentlessly towards it. Teenagers are constantly told, study hard, do your homework, get good grades. But so many of them don't actually know why. They haven't found a goal. They don't know what they want to do with their lives, and honestly, how could they? Everything inside them and around about them is changing so quickly. They often live in a safe little bubble. They have everything done for them, have zero life experience. I once had a colleague who said that students should know what they want to do with their lives by 14, definitely by 16. I thought, dude, you are crazy. Did you just skip past being a teenager? Most people I know, probably most in this room, aren't doing what they thought they would be doing at 16 years old. I certainly did not think I was going to be a teenager. In fact, if you told me that at 16, I would have probably laughed in your face. At different points, I wanted to be a vet, various types of scientist, a pilot, a doctor, a genetic counselor. Each idea faded away, some through experience, others through disappointment. Or in the case of being a pilot, it was being told by my mum that they were just glorified taxi drivers. No offense to pilots. I worked in call centers, restaurants, offices. None of it felt right, and some of it was just downright boring. Then I decided to do this program called Camp America. It was where I was working in a summer camp in New York, and I also did it in Florida, with adults and children with special needs. And something clicked. I thought, this is super fulfilling. I get a lot of joy from doing this. Maybe teaching. It was never a dream, but I thought, I'll give it a try. I was a bit hesitant and very doubtful that I would like it. I hadn't actually stepped into a school since I left myself. But 13 years later, here I am, still teaching it and loving it, despite being driven crazy almost on a daily basis by my students or colleagues, actually mainly by my colleagues. It's actually a very fulfilling career. So what helped me find my path? Experience, trial and error, trying things out to see what fit and what didn't. And I was lucky that I had parents that allowed me to do this. Other teens are not so fortunate. Here's the problem that I see so often. Teenagers' futures are decided for them. I once asked a 13-year-old what he wanted to do in the future. He said he liked science, so maybe something in that area. I then asked his mother the same question separately, and she said, he will study business and he will take over the family company. I was like, ooh, that poor boy does not have a clue that he is not going to have a say in his own future. Another student, he wanted to be a chef. Now, he wasn't very academic, he hated studying, but he was very passionate about food and cooking. Again, his family had other ideas. He was going to take over the family business. I understand why parents, they want security for their children. They want their children to continue their legacy. They mean well, but often their dreams drown out their child's passion. They don't always see who their children really are, or maybe they do, but they just think they know better. And I think that's kind of heartbreaking, because real motivation, lasting motivation, comes when a teenager or individual is allowed to pursue something that truly matters to them. Adolescence is a difficult time. Metamorphosizing from a kid into an adult is never going to be simple or straightforward. As adults, I think we can do better for our young people. Instead of demonizing them or punishing them for things that we do ourselves, instead of making all of their decisions for them and doing everything for them to protect them, we should let them grow, to make their own decisions, to make mistakes and to learn from them. We should let them do things for themselves, to struggle, to become independent and provide opportunities for them to find out what they like, dislike, what they're good at, and what they're not so good at. We should accept that they are unique individuals and they are probably not going to turn out as we want them to. And that's okay. We should let them choose their own paths and become who they want to become, with guidance and support, of course. And we should let them know that it's okay, that they can take their time to decide, and they can change their mind. We should be there to help pick them up when they fall, and help them to learn, not only from their mistakes, but from our own mistakes. We should be mentors, and we should be friends. We should make the effort to understand and empathize with them a little better. After all, we were once them. Thank you.